Stop what you're doing right now and listen to this. I'm about to show you a number that will completely change how you think about money forever. Ready? $125. That's it. Just $125 a week. Now I know what you're thinking. Cave, that's not life-changing money. I probably spend more than that on coffee and takeout. And you're absolutely right. But here's what's gonna blow your mind. That boring $125 a week is actually the exact amount that separates people who retire broke from people who retire millionaires. I'm a caveman, and if I can figure this out, trust me, you can too. See, Wall Street wants you to think investing is this incredibly complex thing that requires years of study and perfect market timing. They want you confused because confusion keeps you dependent on their expensive advice. But the truth, building real wealth is so stupidly simple that literally a caveman is about to teach it to you. My name's Cave, and I've cracked the code that regular people have been using to get rich for decades, even when they start with nothing. Here's something that's gonna blow your mind. If you can save just $125 every single week, that's about $540 a month. You're not just saving money, you're actually building a wealth machine that most people never even realize exists. And the best part? You don't need to understand complex financial theories or spend hours researching stocks. You just need to do one thing consistently. But before I show you the numbers that prove this works, let me tell you why most people never figure this out. They think wealth building is like climbing a mountain. Every step forward is the same amount of progress. Save 1,000, you're 1,000 closer to your goal. Save 10,000, you're 10,000 closer. Makes sense, right? Wrong. That's caveman thinking, and not the good kind. Real wealth building works more like rolling a snowball down a hill. At first, you're doing all the work, pushing that tiny snowball around. But once it gets big enough and starts rolling on its own, it picks up more snow automatically. Eventually, that snowball becomes an avalanche that you can't stop even if you wanted to. Let me show you exactly how this works with some real numbers. Remember that $125 a week I mentioned? That comes out to about $6,500 a year, which honestly isn't crazy money for most working adults. We're talking about the cost of maybe eating out less, skipping some impulse buys, or choosing a slightly less expensive car payment. Now, if you invest this money consistently and earn an average of 8% annually, which is actually conservative compared to what the stock market has done historically, here's where things get interesting. After 10 years of putting away $125 every week, you'll have about $94,000. Not bad, but not exactly life-changing either. Here's where most people make a huge mistake. They look at that number and think, well, at this rate, it'll take me like 100 years to become a millionaire. So they either give up or start chasing risky investments trying to speed up the process. Both decisions are disasters. What they don't realize is they just finished the hardest part of the entire journey. Those first 10 years? That's you pushing the snowball up the hill. From here on out, compound interest starts doing most of the heavy lifting. Watch what happens next. To get from $94,000 to $200,000, it only takes about 5 more years. Not 10, but 5. Your money is now working hard enough that it's generating substantial returns every single year. We're talking thousands of dollars appearing in your account without you lifting a finger. But here's the kicker that nobody talks about. By the time you hit $250,000, which happens just 2 years after reaching $200,000, you're actually halfway to becoming a millionaire. Not 1/4 of the way there, halfway. I know that sounds impossible, but think about it this way. At $250,000, your account is generating roughly $20,000 per year in returns alone. That's like getting a part-time job that pays you for doing absolutely nothing. And every year, that job gives you a raise because there's more money generating returns. The acceleration from here becomes almost addictive to watch. Year 20 of your investment journey, you're sitting at around $400,000. Year 25, you're approaching $700,000. And by year 30, just 30 years of putting away $125 per week, you've crossed the $1 million threshold. Think about what this means. You personally contributed about $195,000 over 3 decades, but your account shows over $1 million. That means roughly 80% of your wealth came from your money-making money, not from your own contributions. Now I know some of you are thinking, Cave, this sounds great on paper, but what about inflation? What about market crashes? What about the fact that I can barely scrape together $125 a week right now? Fair questions. Let me address the inflation thing first. That 8% return I'm using? It's already adjusted for inflation. The stock market has actually averaged closer to 10% annually over long periods, but I'm being conservative because nobody wants to plan their retirement based on overly optimistic numbers. As for market crashes, Here's something counterintuitive that most people don't understand. Market downturns actually help you when you're investing consistently over decades. When prices drop, your weekly $125 buys more shares of whatever you're investing in. When the market recovers, and it always has historically, those extra shares you picked up during the downturn become incredibly valuable. The people who panic and sell during crashes are essentially buying high and selling low, which is the exact opposite of successful investing. Smart investors understand that temporary pain leads to long-term gain. But let's talk about that $125 per week, because I hear this objection a lot. Cave, I don't have an extra $125 just lying around every week. I get it, but here's the thing. Most people have more flexibility in their spending than they realize. They just haven't done the math. The average American household spends over $800 per month on food between groceries and restaurants. If you could cut that by just 20% through meal planning and cooking at home more often, you'd free up $160 monthly. That's more than your weekly investment goal right there. Or consider this. The average car payment in America is now over $750 per month for a depreciating asset. If you bought a reliable used vehicle instead and cut that payment in half, you'd have enough to fund your investment account and still have money left over for other things. I'm not saying you should eat rice and beans every meal or drive a car held together with duct tape, but most people are spending money on things that don't actually make them happier while complaining they can't afford to invest in their future. Here's another piece of the puzzle that makes this whole strategy even more powerful. Most people's income increases over time. The person who starts investing $125 a week at age 25 might be able to contribute $200 or $300 weekly by age 35. Every time you increase your contributions, you accelerate the timeline dramatically. But even if you never increase your weekly amount, the results are still incredible. By year 40 of consistent investing, you're looking at roughly $2.5 million, and your investments are generating over $200,000 annually in returns. At that point, your money is making more each year than most people earn at their jobs. Now let's talk about the specific investments that make this work, because earning 8% annually isn't guaranteed, and choosing the wrong investments could mess up your entire plan. Here's the beautiful thing. You don't need to become a stock-picking genius or spend hours researching companies. For the vast majority of people, a simple total stock market index fund is perfect. You're not trying to beat the market, you're trying to match it. And over long periods, matching the market has created more millionaires than any other investment strategy in history. The S&P 500 has averaged over 10% annually for decades, even accounting for major crashes, recessions, and world wars. You just buy the same fund every week, regardless of what's happening in the news, and let time do the work. The key is avoiding the temptation to get fancy. Don't try to time the market. Don't chase hot stocks. Don't switch strategies every time you read an article about the next big thing. The most successful investors are usually the most boring ones. Here's something else that's crucial but nobody talks about. As your investment account grows, something psychological happens that actually accelerates your wealth building. Watching your balance increase by thousands of dollars each month becomes genuinely exciting. Instead of seeing investing as a sacrifice, you start viewing it as the best thing you do with your money. This excitement motivates you to find additional money to invest. Maybe you start putting your tax refunds into your account instead of spending them on stuff you'll forget about in 6 months. Perhaps you redirect raises at work toward investments instead of lifestyle inflation. You might even start a side business specifically to generate more investment capital. When compound interest is working this powerfully, feeding it becomes a priority instead of a burden. There's also the opportunity factor that comes with having substantial invested assets. When you've got hundreds of thousands invested, you gain options that don't exist for people living paycheck to paycheck. Maybe a great job opportunity comes along with equity compensation, but the salary is lower. Without financial reserves, most people can't take that risk. With a solid investment foundation, you can afford to bet on yourself. Or perhaps you've always wanted to start a business, but you needed capital to get it off the ground. Maybe an incredible real estate opportunity presents itself, but it requires cash you don't have sitting in checking. These scenarios happen constantly, but they're only available to people who have built financial resources through consistent investing. The person who reaches $100,000 invested has proven they can delay gratification, stick to a plan through market ups and downs, and prioritize long-term wealth over short-term spending. These habits become incredibly valuable as the numbers get larger. Here's what really separates wealth builders from everyone else, and it's not what most people think. It's not intelligence, education, or even how much money you make. It's simply having a different relationship with time and delayed gratification. We live in a culture obsessed with instant everything. Instant food, instant entertainment, instant credit approval, instant gratification. The idea of waiting 30 years for anything sounds crazy to most people. They'd rather finance a luxury car today than drive something reliable and invest the difference. This is why most Americans never build substantial wealth, despite living in the most prosperous country in history. It's not because they don't earn enough. It's because they never learned to delay gratification long enough for compound interest to work its magic. The people who do build wealth aren't necessarily smarter than everyone else. They just understand that boring consistency beats exciting speculation almost every time, while others are chasing cryptocurrency or trying to pick winning stocks. Successful investors are quietly adding to their index funds every single week, year after year. Look, I know this isn't the sexiest investment advice you'll hear. There are no get-rich-quick schemes here. No secret strategies that Wall Street doesn't want you to know. It's just simple math applied consistently over time. But here's the reality. Simple works. Complex usually doesn't. The investment strategy I just laid out has created more millionaires than any other approach in history. It doesn't require special knowledge, perfect timing, or huge amounts of money to start. All it requires is the discipline to keep doing the same boring thing every week for decades, while everyone around you is chasing the latest financial trend. So there you have it. The wealth-building secret that's so simple, even a caveman figured it out. Start investing $125 every week in a total stock market index fund. Keep doing it regardless of what happens in the markets or the economy. Don't get fancy, don't try to time anything, and don't stop. 30 years from now, you'll either be thanking yourself for starting today or wondering what could have been if you had. The choice is yours, but the math doesn't lie. Time and compound interest are on your side, but only if you give them the chance to work. Remember, if a caveman can understand this stuff, so can you. The question is, are you going to act on it?